Hello again, everybody. This is Dan Clouser, and welcome back to the Journey of My Mother's Son podcast. Today, I'm joined by Wendy Corner, who is the founder of Wendy Corner Companies and also the founder and creator of Your Words Have Power, a platform for speakers to share their messages and stories to inspire people to live their lives fully. Wendy, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me. Couldn't wait. This was great.
Absolutely. And to give some background, Wendy, I was on one of Wendy's stages in the Your Words Have Power series, and that's how we first connected and how we met. And I've had a couple other people on this show that I've shared that stage with that night. So, just apart from the experience of that really being my first virtual event speaking, which was very different for me, it's really been a blessing because I've, all of a sudden met this, wonderful network of people through that opportunity. So, Wendy, I thank you for that. And I do, again, thank you for being on the show. Really excited to have this conversation. But before we get started, just introduce yourself to the audience. Who is Wendy today in your own words?
Who am I today? Well, as all of us, we've been on a journey. Who I was even a year ago is not who I am now. But who I am now, yes, I'm a businesswoman. My background is in speech pathology, and I'm kind of a reluctant entrepreneur. Got kicked out of the corporate nest probably sooner than I would have liked, but hey, we're never ready, are we? So that's where I'm at now. And I work with speakers, as Dan has beautifully explained, to help them get up to speed. What do you do in public speaking? And my particular passion is for helping people get ready for the hot red spot, looking red hot for the red spot with TEDx. So if that's something that any of your listeners are interested in, I'm happy to chat. But that's a little bit about me, where I am now.
Cool. So let's dive in on one point that you made there, how you were forced out of the corporate world a little bit sooner than you expected. So obviously you had an opportunity there that you could have just wallowed in your sorrow and, played the victim and said, this is a terrible thing that's happened to me and woe is me. Or you kind of, got up and said, you know what, here we go. This is an opportunity now, and became that reluctant entrepreneur. So talk a little bit about that journey. Was there a time of wallow and victim playing, or was it like, hey, here we go, it's time for another opportunity? How did that work out for you?
There was a little bit of a hump moment, because I was accused of something that clearly wasn't accurate and potentially could have taken the firm to court over it, but it wasn't going to get anywhere. It wasn't going to make me feel any better. It was going to put me through the mire, So I thought, no, let's put that to one side. But if I can share with you a story of something I witnessed a long time ago. I used to work as a speech pathologist in a long stay institution. And back in the UK, all of these institutions had beautiful grounds. And I remember parking up one morning, and there in front of me were a row of small trees. And there was a squirrel, a mummy squirrel and a baby squirrel. And mummy squirrel jumped from one tree to the next and then called over to the baby. Now, I don't speak squirrel, but I know that she was vehement in her encouragement. Little baby was doing the, will I, won't I, will I, won't I? As I continued to watch, Mummy came running down her tree, over to the other tree, up behind baby, and bit it on the bum. And baby jumped to the other tree. Now, this was in the days before phones had videos anyway, and I was sitting there going, I don't believe I've just seen this. But that has been a lifelong memory and a wonderful illustration of what happened to me, because I would never have jumped into being an entrepreneur had I not been bitten on the bum. And now, I mean, the journey coming out of the stability and the comfort zone of working as a speech pathologist employed for almost 30 years and knowing there was a cap on it. Now, the only limitation is my internal scripts, which I'm working on. So it's really exciting.
Yeah.
I don't know, does that answer your question?
Absolutely. And, it is funny how, there's times where, you feel safe. You feel safe when you're in that corporate world. You've got, your benefits, you've got, somebody else is worrying about paying all the bills and all that sort of stuff. So there's definitely a comfort zone there. Um, Sometimes, people go into this entrepreneur journey in different ways. And, there's times where it takes, being bit in the bump to do it, to make that jump. And so I love how you were resilient in that and have jumped into it and really are doing what you were similar to what you were doing in corporate in the corporate world, but now doing it under your own rules. So
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about what was that shift like when you realized that you didn't have to answer to anyone anymore. Like now you were the one making the rules.
Oh, it's interesting because I still struggle because I still like to know, well, I don't know the answer to this. And in the past, I would have asked my manager. And now I am the manager. I do have a coach, and they very often go, what would you say if the shoe was on the other foot? What would you how would you answer me? And I want somebody to tell me the answer. No, work it out. So yes, it is a journey, and it is a life journey, and it is a journey of growth, because I don't honestly think that I would have grown as much in the last 5 years if I'd still been working in the under the umbrella of being employed.
Yeah, and that's again, that's special to to get out of that comfort zone and move into this space, and then understand how much you grew through something that was really a terrible circumstance initially, but you turned it around and grew. So let's talk a little bit about how you and I connected with the Your Words Have Power events.
Mm-hmm.
As I said in the intro, that is a platform to allow speakers to share their messages and stories and to inspire people to live their lives fully.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that's important, and why do you think I love the title of that, Your Words Have Power, because words are powerful. So tell me a little bit about the title first and why you think words are so powerful, and then a second part of that question would be why you felt it was important to help others get out there and understand how powerful their words are and how inspiring they can be.
Sure. Okay. Well, the first part, Your Words Have Power, I'm looking at it from two perspectives. There's what we say out here, out loud, and there's what we say in our heads. The what we say in our heads comes at a price, because our words, our internal scripts, are incredibly powerful. Stories are what our primal brains connect with. It digs into the emotional side. It gets into the subconscious. And that's what we tell ourselves day in, day out, maybe consciously, maybe not. Now, my earliest memory is of an abandonment experience in hospital when, as a 2-year-old, my mother couldn't stay in hospital with me after I needed surgery. So when the double doors closed, there's me on one side yelling and screaming for my mother, and her on the other side not being able to come to me. That little 2-year-old at that point made the decision and told herself, my voice doesn't matter. Everybody else's voice must matter, but the important people did not come to me when I called. My voice doesn't matter. That was an unconscious memory, and that was an unconscious script I was running. And I didn't uncover it for another 50 years. But in the meantime, that my voice doesn't matter, everybody else's does. Do you think that could have had something to do with me deciding to be a speech pathologist? I reckon. So that unconscious script, that decision, that little story I've been telling myself over the years veered me in a career path. Then, after I was bitten on the bum and jumped onto the other tree, I realized the importance of other people spreading their message, because those words have power. And it's not just the ones, as I said, inside, it's the ones coming out as well. And those stories that we can tell, as I said, they can be inspiring. And if told well, they will reach the subconscious of the brain of the other person. And they go, well, if they can do it, so can I. And it gives that sense of hope and that sense of, oh, it's not all lost. And that's why I find this really powerful. Words do have power, both internally and externally.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I do this podcast, is I believe that everyone has a story to tell, and that those stories can be very inspirational and very powerful. So I think that's one of the reasons why you and I connected so well, is, it's very similar, two different platforms, but very similar inspiration behind it.
Yes.
So the Words Have Power program this past year had, I believe, 17 cycles through it. Is that correct? Okay.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about that. Each cycle had 4 speakers. And again, it was virtual.
Except the first one.
Okay. So, just walk me through, putting that together, and, what it was like for you, once you kicked number 1 off, kind of that feeling as to, wow, we did this, all the way to, the final one of the year here, number 17, that was just back in December. What it felt like after you went through all 17 of them, and you had this whole, you ended up building a pretty incredible network as well, I would think, because I know just my experience of being involved in one of them, the network that I've built with the people I was able to interact with. So it's me times 17 for you. So just, talk about that a little bit for me.
Sure. Well, it started life as a one of those, IWD is coming up, International Women's Day is coming up. What are we going to do to mark International Women's Day? Let's have an open mic session. So with under a week before IWD, we didn't do it on the actual day because there was so much stuff going on. So we did it later on in the week. And we advertised it as, come and share 3 minutes worth of wisdom, inspiration to other women across the world. So we had 10, 12, I can't remember how many speakers we had now. And it was wonderful. We had all of these ladies, totally unscripted, off the bat, give 3 minutes of inspiration to other women who were listening. It got recorded and sent out. And the feedback we got was, how have we missed this? This was really good. This was really powerful. And that got me thinking, there's a market for this. There's a need for this opportunity to share inspirational stories. So that's when we started thinking, okay, rather than have complete open mic where there's no feedback, there's no ongoing stuff around it. We started thinking then, okay, let's have a 1 hour session with 4 speakers for 10 minutes without techie things to go wrong with visuals and all of that sort of stuff. And then part of it evolved over time, over the year, to having the opportunity of podcasts, having the opportunity for a deep dive of 60 minutes with the individual speakers. there was always that feedback from the audience, because one of the things that as a speaker, Daniel know this, that you very rarely get genuine feedback from the audience. You can glance around the room and get an idea of what's happened. And if you put out an evaluation form, very often the feedback you get was, "Dan was brilliant. Yeah, thank you. Nice. How?
Right.
Why? What was special?" And so that was the point, that this was fulfilling a dual role. The speakers get the opportunity to speak and share their message. The audience then go, "Wow, that was great. And specifically, this is how it was great," so that you get that feedback on top. So that's how it evolved. And it got bigger and bigger as we went along. I have a team of staff supporting me now, and the Your Words Have Power team, as you've experienced. Brilliant at the graphics. They do the live streaming. They do all of this. And I could not have done it without them. I really couldn't. And that's why we were shortlisted for an award this year as well. So, yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, and I know that was something that was very beneficial to me, was having that feedback as well. Because again, it was my first virtual event. I'm, much more comfortable in a live speaking setting where I'm, on the stage and, can kind of, I move a little bit while I'm talking back and forth on the stage. I can make eye contact with with the audience. So it was, and I told you this again in our, kind of post meeting conference, so to speak. I was very uncomfortable and, felt very awkward in the virtual setting. Like I said, this setting here on Zoom is very natural for me, because it's what I do. It's, it's a podcast format. It's you and me having a conversation. We just happen to be, recording it. But, it was very awkward for me. So it was great to have that feedback, and it was great to have your personal feedback too, in that, again, kind of post speaker conference, for lack of a better term. So tell me a little bit. There you go.
Post event review call.
All right, perfect. So tell me why you felt that was important to have a one-on-one with each of the speakers afterwards, where you could have a very, intimate and personal conversation and give them feedback about how they performed.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's the thing. When you get the audience feedback is one thing, but then to get feedback from somebody who is an expert, yes, I'll give myself that title. It gives you then, okay, this is where we're going. This is how I can improve things from here. Because you're quite right. The physical in-person event, how you speak in that situation, is subtly different from virtual. I mean, the fact is, we're doing a virtual conversation now, and it just happened to be there were more people in the room. And yeah, we were live streaming. However, you didn't see that. Exactly. And you didn't need to see that. And that's the same thing for when you come to do your TEDx. She says, dropping that in there. Because when you do a TEDx presentation, yes, you're speaking to the people in the room, and you're aware of the camera, because there will be people, and there will be a lot more people watch you afterwards than are in the room at the time. So there's the subtle difference, and marrying the two skill sets really is an art that requires a little bit of hand holding, particularly when it's your first time doing a virtual.
Yeah.
So that's why I find it's really important, because yes, we are opening up to the world again physically. And I caution speakers to think that, go back to beginning of March 2020, when you had a full calendar of events worked out for the whole year. What happened? Zero income for the rest of the year. Whereas now, the virtual market, I think the stats were something like predicted $4.2 billion in the virtual market, US alone, in the next 3 years. Wow. So it's a skill set worth learning.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's definitely not going anywhere.
Nope.
You know, we may have all been kind of forced into it. I mean, it was probably slowly headed toward that direction, but the pandemic certainly sped up everyone getting there without a doubt. And I think
Absolutely.
for events, it's actually opened a lot of doors to, you know, to be able to, you know, for event organizers to be able to organize both in person and virtual events.
Yes.
It's another opportunity for them. And again, it ends up, you know, really broadening your reach because you're not just speaking with, you know, people in, you know, the US or people in, you know, Perth or wherever the case is. It's so broad. So talk a little bit about, you know, if you have stats on the audience that was reached through your events
Oh, through your
virtually.
WhatsApp. Yeah. Well, we had an audience of 508 people over the year, over the, where are we, March to December. So that's what, 9 months. Yeah. And they were coming from 23 different countries. So how's that for reach? I mean, getting back to your point about the events, I mean, corporates now are looking at, do we really want to fly our folks in from all over the world for a meeting? No, it's cheaper, less impact on the environment to do it virtually. And maybe we'll have one big event a year, but we don't need to have everybody there in the room because that's what we've now experienced. But yes, you'll reach them with, from virtual perspective, how a time zone is possibly your only limitation. And that's something we were doing, because originally we were doing 2 sessions a month, one that was North America friendly and one that was Euro friendly, because it's unusual for you to be able to get, I mean, North America and Europe together, that's doable. Australasia and Europe together is doable. Not everybody all at once, because somebody's going to be in bed. So that's why we did it over 2 different sessions. However, the Europe one, we ended up giving up because people were not interested. They didn't see the point of it. So that was fine. I think we had 4 speakers from the UK in total. Most of the other people who were filling out that slots were Australasians. So yeah, probably time zones your only confine.
Yeah, even with us, we're recording this, you know, and we're 14 hours apart. You know, you're 14 hours ahead of where,
I know,
you know,
it's fun,
where we are now. So it, you know, at the time of this actual recording of the podcast, it's Monday morning for you and Sunday evening for me. So it's even just time zones in and of themselves, just I still can hardly wrap my head around it when we're traveling throughout the country and we're crossing time zones. And I know the dog still doesn't have a grasp on it because he still thinks treat time is treat time regardless of what time zone we're in. But I don't want to get too far off on a tangent on time zones. But yeah, that can be the only the only setback on the virtual events. But even that, I think people find a way to make it happen. So
there are certain apps which are really, really helpful.
Yeah. So when you, like you said, the first one that you did was kind of, you know, kind of sort of by accident, and then you decided to build on that. Did you expect that you would reach, you know, 23 countries when you actually put it into motion and said, all right, now we threw this one together, now we're gonna actually plan it and see what we can do?
Yes.
Did that blow you away when you started seeing those stats?
Golly, yes. I mean, when I got the team to give me the full stats from before I closed off, I've pre-recorded an end of year quick 60-second message that will go out probably Christmas Eve. Again, well done team for doing that in advance. But so I wanted the stats to hand, and yeah, 91 speakers representing 8 countries from speakers, audience 508 from 23 different countries. I would not have put that down in my wildest dreams back in March. So yeah, following your heart, following your intuition, following your guidance, and they see where it takes you.
And, I think the other cool thing about the virtual event is, that those numbers that you just gave were your initial reach, but they're still out there. They're still out there, and people who didn't initially attend those events can go back and find those events and listen to them. And, I think when after say another year, I think those stats are going to blow you away even more so,
Yeah. Yeah. I
without a
mean,
doubt.
next year we're doing something slightly different. We're looking at running summits, virtual summits, for a couple of days, and we're doing the training on the front end, so that we're actually advertising, come and be a summit speaker, learn how to be a summit speaker. So we're going to have a deep dive for 6 weeks on the lead up. So it'll be group coaching plus some individual stuff, and then having the opportunity to be on a virtual summit. So what we've done is we've learned from this year, because a lot of the feedback was, it was great, but it wasn't all. We were doing it from cold, and then you picked up the pieces afterwards. Whereas this year coming, it's our mad year, making a difference. As we're going to be really mad this coming year, we're going to build people up on the way to their speaking experience. So we're learning. As we said right from the start, the original idea was, let's just throw something together. Well, we've planned, we've executed, and now we're reflecting and doing something different for the new year. So again, the journey continues.
That's cool. That's cool. What's one of the things that you find most rewarding for you out of putting these events together?
Seeing how the speakers come alive, whether it's on Your Words Have Power, whether it's the TEDx speakers I've been working with, whether it's the people that I've been working with on a coaching program. The Your Words Have Power in particular, if I can share with you, one of our alumni was speaking in Cairo 2 weeks ago, pitching to the Egyptian government about building cities with inclusive buildings from the plans up. And I'm going, you. On the same day, I had one of my graduates from my program get second in an international Toastmasters competition. Should have got first. And that's not simply a biased opinion. He really should have got first. And the second one was at a networking meeting, and she told her story without tears, because the first time she tried it, oh dear, we could not get through it.
Yeah.
So when you see things like that, and you see how the speakers just blossom in telling their story, and you can see the reach that they are having, I feel a bit like sort of a proud mama moment.
Yeah.
Even though it's not my call, I'm proud with the speakers of what they're achieving and the ripples that are going out, because together, collectively, we are so definitely making a difference in the world, far more than I could do on my own.
Yeah, no doubt about that. No doubt about that. So for obviously you love that coaching aspect of it, but you're still doing some speaking on your own as well, correct?
Yes.
What are one of the things that drive you the most when you're actually speaking to an audience? What is it that really, again, kind of inspires you to get that message out there?
Well, originally, remember, my internal script was, my voice doesn't matter, everybody else's does. It's only in the last 14, 15 months that my coach said, you know what, you're still running that same script. You need to get out on stage because your voice matters. So this year I've been doing a lot more stage work, virtually or in person. I had intended to do my TEDx this year. However, mandates came in and I chose not to take the jab. So that was pulled. But next year should be online. sorry, be a goer, not online. It will be in person. So yes, in terms of why that's important for me, because I have now flipped my script. My words matter, my voice matters, and my words do have power. So that's what I am. That's the driving force behind it. And my talk is about the fact that your words do have power and the importance of those internal scripts. So it's all part of the same process, because I am so passionate about those stories and the power of the words that we say to ourselves just as much as what we say out loud. Because as I've said to you in the past, if what we say in our heads does not match what we say with our mouths, our non-verbals, our visuals, our hands, our body, our voice will give us away. And there'll be that sense of disconnect, and the audience will pick up on it, and you won't feel authentic.
Yeah.
So that's my driving force.
Yeah, and definitely the words that we say to ourselves are even more powerful than the words we say to others, because we are our own worst critic, without a doubt. So, to overcome that and to get past that and be able to send a powerful message is a big deal. So I love that. Wendy, is there anything that we didn't cover that you think would be valuable for the audience before we wrap up here?
In terms of looking at what your internal scripts are like, the words we use out loud are a bit of a giveaway. So what are those words that regularly trip off your tongue? Now, yes, we will guard our tongues a little bit more in terms of what we say to other people, but think about the flavor of them. Are you somebody who's generally seeing what's wrong with this picture? Or are you somebody who looks for what's right with this picture? What are the words that you associate with those two situations? That will give you a clue to what's going on in your internal scripts. Anyone who knows me regularly will have heard the word awesome coming out of my mouth, and various other encouraging sounds, because that is something that I have been determined, because other people's voices matter. I have been determined to encourage other people right from when I was teeny tiny. Flipping that onto myself is then a work in progress. But doing a bit of a language audit for yourself is a challenge if you've got some trusted people that are not going to beat you up and are not going to say, well, you've said this wrong and you said that wrong. However, stand up a mirror to you. What are the words I'm regularly using? Because sometimes we're not aware of them. And doing your own language audit can really indicate to you what those internal scripts are. And then you can consciously decide, do I like that one? Is it working for me? And if it's not, consciously change it to something else.
Love that for sure. So, Wendy, how do people find you on the internet if they want to find out more about what you're doing with Your Words Have Power? If they want to find out more about the program you're putting together for next year, and is that still going to be Your Words Have Power, or will that be a different?
Next year we're having a mad year, so we're making a difference. This year, the Your Words Have Power has been focused on the speaker's perspective. Next year, we're focusing it in on the audience's perspective. So that's why it's making a difference, because we're doing a multi-author book so that the speakers have the opportunity to have something physical that they can give away for money, obviously, that they can sell for, to have as something credible physically as well as their speaking, because the two go hand in hand when it comes to upping the credibility stakes. And it also means then that if you're on the way to having a speaking as your major career, you've got something physical, and the authors also then have some work with marketing to do the speaking. So there's a double whammy on that one. Right. So yes, we have a mad year of looking at the multi-author books, the summits, a retreat. We're looking at doing a retreat as well, and an in-person conference. So mad year coming up, and probably the best way of getting hold of me is Linktree Coach. I'll put it in the show notes for you.
We'll put it in the show
stuff
notes.
That we're doing. All the stuff that we're doing is going to be attached to that. But yes, you can find me on YouTube. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook. Apparently, I am on Insta. I don't do TikTok. That's not my jam.
Me either. Me either. Yeah, I have my hands full with Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Anything beyond that,
Exactly.
I'm good with. I have a Twitter account, but I haven't used it in years. So
I do have a Twitter account, and apparently it's linked to my ComCoach account. So that anything that goes up on ComCoach immediately goes up on there, but I haven't looked at it.
So, Wendy, that brings us to our final question. As you know, the subtitle of the podcast is Many Little People in Many Little Places, which comes from the opening lyrics of a Michael Franti song, Gloria, which go, when many little people in many little places do many little things, then the whole world changes. So it's one of the little things that Wendy does on a daily basis to make the world a little bit better place.
Wendy is somebody who is very keen on letting people know that they matter. So if I'm out at shops and people are wearing their name badges, I will refer to them by name. If I see the cleaners running around in the mall, I will specifically thank them for their good job. Anybody that has a name badge, I will make a point of referring to by name and, where until possible, complimenting them. I've been known to walk down the street and see somebody a little unusually, bit of an avant-garde vibe going on with blue hair or whatever. And I've just sort of, as I've gone past, dig their hair. And they've done a double take and gone, from this square-looking woman? So my point is that every day I will do at least one encouragement, if you like.
That's so important. That's so important to, because you never know what somebody's going through, and just to, to call them by name or give them a smile, it is so important. So that's definitely one of those little things that turns into a big thing because it creates a ripple effect for sure. So I love that answer. Wendy, I really appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate everything you've done for me personally through this network that you've opened up. It's been an honor to be a part of it. And for those out there listening, be sure to check out my other podcasts and blogs at journeymymotherson.com or danclouser.com. While you're there, pick up a copy of my most recent book, The Journey of My Mother's Son, Volume 1. Wendy, again, thank you so much for joining me. This was a pleasure.
Thank you, Dan. I've loved it. Speak soon.
You bet. Thank you.